Thanks for joining me for session 5 of basic training. I'm Erin McMurray and I'm here with Keith Dresser, and we're here to rescue your vegetables from mediocrity. Okay, so vegetables vary in size, shape, and texture, and it's really important that you know how best to prepare each one. Brussels sprouts is one of my all-time favorite vegetables. I think it gets a bad rap. Most often you'll find it roasted, which really brings out the sweetness of the Brussels sprout. But I also love it raw. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So the first thing you want to do is trim off the end. And then peel off any leaves that are dark and wilted so that you're left with the lighter green and they're firm and crisp. If I just took off a leaf and I started chewing on it, it would be way too tough and it would not be enjoyable at all. So the important thing that we're going to do here is we're going to shred the Brussels sprouts so that we're really cutting each leaf into hundreds of thin strips. So I'm just going to cut it in half, put it cut side down on the cutting board, and I'm just going to run my knife through it using the claw method, which is where I'm using my middle knuckle to guide my knife as I run through the Brussels sprout. It takes a lot of practice, but once you get through it, and once you practice makes perfect, you'll get really comfortable with it, and you can even look away while you're slicing because you know that your knuckle is guiding you. All right. So it's as easy as that. One Brussels sprout yielded that much. Season it with salt and pepper. Add your favorite dressing or simple extra virgin olive oil and lemon juice. Add a healthy dose of herbs. Toss it all together. And one thing I haven't mentioned is that Brussels sprouts are very hearty and they will hold up and actually further soften once you dress it. So you can dress it, put it into the refrigerator, and walk away. When you come back, they're going to be even softer and more tender, but still have a nice toothsome bite to them. Okay, so let's move on to kale. Kale is very fibrous and very tough. So as you can see here, I have a plate weighting down the kale in this bowl of water. After I remove the leaves from the stem, I tear them up into like 1 to 2 inch pieces, and I put them into water, a warm water bath, which is roughly 110 to 115 degrees. And I just let that soak. I have a plate on it to make sure that all the leaves are submerged. And I let that soak for about 10 minutes. It's just going to make them that much more tender so that you can enjoy them in salads. Once you have your kale dried and drained, all you need to do is turn it into a salad. As I mentioned with Brussels sprouts, kale is another green that is very hardy and sturdy and can hold up and actually benefits from sitting in its dressing. You can dress it up to 6 hours in advance, and that dressing is going to continue to tenderize the kale. Or you can make any salad that you have with any leftovers that you have. I personally love adding roasted vegetables, cheese, a nice sweet vinaigrette to it, toss it in advance, let it sit in the refrigerator, let all those flavors meld, let the kale continue to tenderize. Whatever you have, just run with it. You cannot go wrong. Okay, so let's talk about tomatoes and cucumbers. These are 2 common salad ingredients, and if you're not careful, they can ruin your salad. Because they are high moisture vegetables, all you need to do is cut them down into bite-sized pieces, sprinkle them with kosher salt, put them into a colander. Within 15 minutes, that salt is going to extract any excess moisture from the vegetables. All you need to do is take your cucumbers and tomatoes, add them to your salad, dress your salad, and serve it, and you're not going to wind up with a watery mess at the bottom of the bowl. I want to highlight one of my favorite salads, and that is a smashed cucumber salad. And once again, we're going to salt the cucumbers. So I've taken 2 English cucumbers, and I've cut them each into thirds. And now I'm putting the thirds into the Ziploc bag, and I'm sealing it shut. And now comes the fun part, and you could also use a skillet if you want. And I'm going to smash each of the cucumbers until each third is split into about 4 spears. This is fun to do with the kids too. Okay, so once you smash them all, you open up your bag and you have these spears. And the spears are all different sizes and shapes. After that, you want to break them up into 1 inch pieces. And after they're all broken up into 1 inch pieces, I'm going to put them into a colander and sprinkle them with about 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. This salt is going to help to expel any excess moisture from the cucumbers. So I salted these earlier, about 30 minutes ago, and as you can see, there's about 1/3 of a cup of water that was extracted from these cucumbers, which is great. If I didn't salt them, that water would come out in the salad after I dressed it, and it would dilute the salad, and it would just make all my efforts for nothing. So now all I have to do is take the cucumbers, put them into a bowl, dress them. This craggly texture is going to help the dressing to cling on to each piece, and my salad is going to be served and it's going to be beautiful and it will not be waterlogged. So salting is a very key step here. When you have any high moisture vegetables, you want to salt it, give it 15 to 30 minutes, extract that moisture, and your salad is going to be better for it. Okay, so let's move on to cabbage. Cabbage leaves are very tough, and there's two important steps that you want to take in order to tenderize the leaves. You want to cut the leaves down either in very thin shreds or you want to finely chop them. And the next step is you want to salt them. First, I should say that I have cut the cabbage head in half. I removed the soft wilted leaves. Now I'm left with a firm, crisp head. So I'm going to slice this in half. Again, I'm going to cut this half into quarters. I'm going to cut right through the core. Cutting through the core is important because it holds all the leaves together and it makes slicing much more manageable. So once you cut it into a quarter, I'm going to use the claw. I'm going to grab onto the cabbage. I'm going to use my knuckle and I'm going to guide my knife blade all the way through it so that we yield nice thin shreds. So as you can see, I have a nice, beautiful pile of shreds. Now the next step is to add salt to it. So I'm going to put this into a colander, sprinkle it with a generous amount of kosher salt, toss it to make sure that that salt comes into contact with each of the slices of cabbage. I'm going to let it sit for about 1 to 2 hours. And during that time, the salt is going to extract water and it's also going to make the leaves much more tender. I have an example here. This is cabbage that I salted a couple of hours ago, and I put it into a bowl, and you can see that there's probably about a tablespoon of liquid at the bottom of the bowl. And most importantly, these leaves have really tenderized, and you can see that they're a lot more softer and more pliable, and that's going to be much more enjoyable to eat than stiffer cabbage such as this. So 2 key steps. You want to make sure that you cut your cabbage down into very thin chiffonade or slices, or you finely chop it. The next step is you salt it. Salt it for a couple of hours. I use about a ratio of maybe 2 teaspoons of kosher salt to a whole head of cabbage, and just make sure you toss it. Make sure that that salt comes in contact with all the shreds, and then let it sit in the colander and let the salt do its work. It's going to extract that water and it's going to take it out of the salad, and it's going to make your cabbage much more tender to eat. And there you have it. All you need to know to rescue your vegetables from mediocrity. Now Keith is going to show you how to rescue your cooked vegetables from mediocrity. Keith, take it away.
Hi there, Keith Dresser here at home. I'm going to turn up the heat literally, and we're going to start cooking some vegetables. In fact, these are some of my favorite ways to cook vegetables at home. So first up, I have probably the simplest way to cook vegetables, and that's blanching. And so blanching is immersing vegetables in boiling hot water and then cooking it really quickly and then transferring it over to an ice water bath, which is called shocking. That's where you get the blanching and shocking from. Really good for any kind of vegetables here, blanching is, but since it does a really good job of setting the green color in green vegetables, of course, that's where I really like it. In fact, probably my favorite vegetable to blanch are green beans, but you can use peas. Broccoli rabe is actually really good for blanching because in that blanching process you get rid of some of that bitterness that is in broccoli rabe. So what I have here, it's a really easy setup. I have about 2.5, 3 quarts of water. Whoa, steam everywhere. I have 2.5, 3 quarts of water, and it's coming up to a boil here, and all I'll add is a teaspoon of salt to this. And it's really important to add salt when you're blanching. It's just like cooking pasta. You don't want bland vegetables like you don't want bland pasta. So 2.5, 3 quarts of water, and I have about a pound of vegetables here, and I'm just going to slide these in really quickly. Stir it around with a spider, and that's just going to come back up to a boil. You want to be over high heat. You want to bring that back up to a boil really quickly. And it only takes 2 or 3 minutes for these vegetables to cook. That's a really great thing about blanching. For me, I really want to retain that crisp, tender texture in green beans. So 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll take that out and we'll slide it into an ice bath. Okay, so it's been a couple minutes and our green beans are nice and bright green and crisp tender. So I'm going to take them out and we're going to go over to our water bath now. A spider or a wire skimmer is really great for this because you can get a lot of green beans out at once, so you're not leaving some in there to overcook and some are perfectly cooked. So we'll scoop these out in batches. Now I'm going into a water bath here. If I were going to serve these right away, you wouldn't need to do that. You could just toss them with a little butter, whatever seasoning you want, and then go right to the table. Now that we have our vegetables in that water bath, we want to chill those down really quickly. This is a really nice tip right here if you are shocking vegetables for later, is that get your ice water and into a large bowl and set a colander or a fine mesh strainer into that. So when it comes time to take those vegetables out of the cold water, you're not fishing ice cubes out, and you can just take it simply out of there, drain off that water, dry it off, and cook it for later. Okay, another favorite technique of mine is skillet charring or skillet roasting. Really good technique for cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, really any firm vegetable. And what I like about it is that you still retain some of that crisp, tender texture like you do with blanching, but you will also get a lot of dark caramelization on the vegetable as well. And this is done on a stovetop. And here I have about a pound of Brussels sprouts. And I'm just going to lay these into a cold pan. This is a kind of a neat method. It's a cold start method. So the idea is that you want to get your Brussels sprouts in here with the cut side down. And you want to make sure that you have nice cut sides because those are the things that are going to brown. And now another key step here is that you want a fair amount of oil here. Again, this is all about surface contact. And if you don't have enough oil, when the Brussels sprouts shrivel up, this is what a Brussels sprout looks like when it shrivels up. When it shrivels up, it won't make good surface contact. So by putting a fair amount of oil in there, you ensure that it has good surface contact as it shrinks up. So this is kind of a hybrid cooking technique. We're going to do both covered and uncovered cooking. We're going to put the cover on initially. That's going to trap any moisture being given off by the Brussels sprouts or whatever vegetable you're cooking. It's going to cook it through until it's nice and tender. And then at the end, we'll take the lid off, evaporate any moisture, and then we'll get a nice golden brown color on the bottom. So lid on, medium-high heat, and we're going to let that go, anywhere from probably 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what you want. And you want the vegetables to be just a little underdone, and then you can take it off and finish it. It's been about 5 minutes, and we want to check on our Brussels sprouts. And you can see that they're nice and bright green here. And we're starting to get some color on it. You don't want to expect too much color right now. We'll get that once that water gets evaporated off there. So we're going to leave the cover off, increase the heat a little bit. And also it makes sense as you're cooking these Brussels sprouts to move your skillet around a little bit to make sure that they get even browning on the bottom. Okay, these are looking really great. I can tell that they're getting really nice and browned on the bottom here. Oh yeah, they're perfect. And you can see how evenly brown they are on the bottom. That's because we've had really good surface contact and we had a fair amount of oil in there. And again, the beautiful thing I like about this is that the bottoms are really well golden brown, but the tops are still crisp and tender. So they have that kind of, two levels of texture here, which is really fun. Great. So at this point, transfer those over to a platter, flavor them however you want, and you're ready to go. So my last method I'm going to show you here is simply oven roasting. Couple things that you want to think about when you're roasting vegetables. You don't want to throw them on a pan, throw them in the oven, kind of hope for the best. You want to start with a nice heavy-duty rim baking sheet, one that's not going to warp when it goes in the oven, because that way the oil will pull to one side or the other. You won't get nice even browning. You want to use similar-sized pieces of vegetables. Again, like skillet roasting, you want to make sure that you have a lot of cut surfaces, which will brown easily, and you want to make sure that you have enough oil in that pan that you'll have good surface contact throughout. So, again, you can roast any vegetable. For me, I really like denser vegetables, parsnips, carrots, sweet potatoes, regular red bliss potatoes, and anything like that. I have carrots here. I have 1.5 pounds of carrots, which is, a good rule of thumb. You don't want to crowd the pan too much when you're putting it in there, because you'll have too much steam and then the vegetables won't brown before they get cooked. a couple tablespoons of oil, vegetable oil, olive oil, whatever you like, some salt, a few grinds of pepper. Just want to stir this around really quickly. So you just want to stir this around until everything's well combined. That pepper is well distributed. That goes onto the pan. Scrape any oil out. Set this aside. And just turn these on their cut sides. They have a couple cut sides, that's okay. You want to spread these out and make sure there's space in between it so it can evaporate, that moisture can evaporate as they cook. Now, the other key step here is like our skillet roasting, we have a hybrid covered uncovered technique. So I'm just going to lay a piece of foil over here. That's going to help the moisture stay in there. It's going to help those carrots steam, tenderize. We'll take that off after about 10 minutes, and then they'll finish roasting in there and get nice color on them. Okay, I'm just going to put these in my oven and go for 10 minutes covered, and then we'll take that off, and it will depend on what you're roasting. Could be anywhere from 15 to 35 minutes, depending on how dense the vegetable is. Okay, so here are our finished roast carrots, and you can see we have some nice color on here. But what I like about them is that they still are plump and tender. They haven't been kind of dried out by being in the oven for the entire time uncovered. So these will be great. We'll transfer these over to a platter, plate, and we'll get ready to eat these. So one of my favorite ways to finish vegetables are toasted breadcrumbs, starting with panko breadcrumbs. Super easy to make. They just take 3 or 4 minutes. You can flavor them many different ways, but they add a lot of contrast to the vegetables, a little bit of crispness, a little bit of richness with some olive oil. So what I have is just a small skillet here with about a tablespoon of oil. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of panko breadcrumbs. And we're just going to stir this until those panko breadcrumbs get nice and golden brown. Okay, I can see that they're starting to go golden brown on the bottom. You don't want to leave these unattended. These can go really quick. Now you can finish these a number of different ways. I'm going to do a little bit of garlic and chili flake, but you can put some Parmesan cheese in here, fresh herbs in here. There are tons of different ways to kind of go about this. Give this a quick toss. Healthy pinch of chili flake. And that's it. Super simple. Now these can be sprinkled over blanched vegetables, skillet roasted vegetables, pretty much any vegetable that you want. Add a lot of great texture, a lot of great flavor. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed following along with me with some of my favorite ways to cook vegetables. Hope to see you guys soon.